In this lab, we'll explore the concepts of using Linux logs for a security investigation. So let's get a terminal open now and dive into it. As we've seen in the earlier labs, var log is where all the Linux logs live. So let's cd inside there now, take a look. Running a quick ls tac-al will show us all of the log files inside here. I'm just going to expand my window a little bit. And let's go and cat the auth log first and talk about that. Inside of auth log is where we'll see successful and failed logins, password changes, and authentication attempts. It's a crucial log for tracking user activity and security breaches. Now, just catting it isn't enough. It's kind of hard to figure out what's going on, but if we cat and pipe, we can look for specific things. Maybe looking for SSHD, for the SSH daemon, and see what we find. So just in the auth log, we get some information about what the SSH daemon is actually doing and at what times. We can also look for failed logins. So similarly, we can cat auth log once again, pipe it, and grep it over to failed to observe the outputs. And here we can see that there was some system activation that failed actually. And now what about some accepted logins? So what if we were to do that again, cat auth log and then pipe for accepted? Let's see what we can find. Cool, so in this case we actually see that there's some public key authentication that's happened over here between a client and a server. And that's really it when it comes to grepping through logs. We want to look for accepted or failed or crashed or corrupted, some type of keyword we're trying to identify inside of the log itself. So a quick cat and grep or a less and search. There's multiple ways to do it, but that's effectively looking through one of those logs. So up next we have syslog, and this is the main system log that collects messages from different sources, including kernel, applications, services, and more. So let's do a less and look inside of it. And what it does is that it categorizes messages based on severity levels, such as debug, info, warning, error, and critical. That's pretty handy. And we can of course cat the syslog and also grep through it for something like started, which will give us an output of various sources that have started, such as the kernel and applications, services, and more. Okay, so next let's look at the kern log. And the kern log is where we can see kernel-related events and messages, hardware errors, driver issues, and other kernel-level activities. And Linux actually has a command built in called dmessage. And this just makes the output of kern log much richer to look at. It also has color added to it. So we'll look inside of dmessage in the kern log, and this is nice, right? Like compared to just regular cat and grep. So let's actually go and compare that to a cat kern log and see what it looks like. Pretty big difference, right? The color coding with the dmessage is a lot easier to work with. We can also pass flags and options to it to make our life easier. And so there's another command we can use, sort of like how dmessage interacts with kern log. We can run the last command. That's kind of like taking a peek inside of the user login history instead of catting through the auth log itself. Finally, last thing that we'll look at is the journal control command. And journal control actually interacts with systemd that we saw earlier before with system control. In other words, we can use journal control to view the systemd journal. And so similarly to dmessage, we have some color coding, we have some filtering, some organizing, things of priority to look at. And we can also pass flags to it, just like other commands in like dmessage as well. So if we were to run a journal control tac-u SSH, we could see all of the logs specific to the SSH service. That's pretty neat. And that's really it for the ability to inspect logs. The next challenge comes with context, like what are you actually looking for and in which log file do you need it from? But sifting through them is pretty easy to do and arguably, again, a little bit easier in the command line if you know what you're looking for instead of poking around the GUI. So just remember, ultimately when it comes to Linux logs, we're looking for activity inside of auth log, kern log, syslog, and we have tools that we can interact with these logs a little bit easier, like dmessage and last, and even journal control to inspect the systemd journal.